Arthur waited until the perfect moment, watching as Jeff hovered around the kitchen, clearly looking for something exciting to do. Arthur knew Jeff's insatiable appetite for adventure, and he had just the thing to surprise him. "Jeff," Arthur called, trying to keep his tone casual, "how do you feel about ice cream?" Jeff turned instantly, his eyes lighting up. "Ice cream? Are we, raiding a freezer?" Arthur laughed, pulling 2 tickets from behind his back with a flourish. "Better. We're going on a tour of Blue Bell Creameries." For a moment, Jeff was speechless. He took the tickets, inspecting them like they were keys to a forbidden realm. The Blue Bell Creameries? The very heart of frozen sweetness? Where they create ice cream? Arthur nodded, holding back a laugh. "Yep. We'll get a behind-the-scenes look at how they make all their flavors, from the mixing to the packaging line." Jeff's grin spread from ear to ear, his excitement nearly vibrating off of him. "Arthur, you've truly outdone yourself. Lead me to the land of frozen dreams." The drive to Blue Bell was filled with Jeff's animated musings on every flavor he'd ever heard of, as well as new, outlandish combinations he wanted to try creating. By the time they pulled into the parking lot, Jeff was practically bouncing with anticipation. The creamery building itself was a charming, vintage-inspired structure, complete with old-fashioned decor and the iconic Blue Bell cow logo hanging above the entrance. Jeff dashed ahead, unable to contain his excitement, as Arthur followed behind with an amused smile. Inside, the lobby was cozy and welcoming, with posters showcasing scoops of every flavor imaginable and vintage photos detailing the history of Blue Bell. Jeff drifted from display to display, inspecting each one as though he were uncovering ancient artifacts. "Oh, look," he exclaimed, holding up a brochure with the Blue Bell logo proudly emblazoned across the top. "Arthur, they have maps of the factory layout. And look at these photos. This is practically a museum." Arthur chuckled. "Jeff, we haven't even seen the actual factory floor yet." Jeff's eyes shone with wonder. "I'm savoring the build-up, Arthur. Every great adventure needs a prologue." Their tour group gathered in the lobby, and soon they were greeted by Marlene, a cheerful woman with a southern twang and a smile as sweet as the ice cream they were about to see. She was a local, clearly proud of the factory, and wore a name tag shaped like an ice cream scoop. "Howdy, y'all," Marlene said, clapping her hands together. "Welcome to Blue Bell Creameries. Today, we're gonna show y'all how we make the ice cream that folks all over the country know and love." Jeff leaned forward, already captivated, his gaze fixed on Marlene with intense curiosity. As she began her introduction, explaining how Blue Bell had been a Texas staple for over a century, Jeff hung on her every word. "Our motto here is, we eat all we can, and we sell the rest," Marlene added with a wink. Jeff gasped, clutching his chest dramatically. "Arthur, that's poetic. A motto of pure genius." Arthur gave him a gentle nudge. "Let's see if you're still this excited by the end." Marlene, noticing Jeff's energy, seemed amused as she continued with the tour. Jeff fired off questions in rapid succession. "How many flavors do you make here? Do you ever let people sample flavors you don't sell? Is there a secret flavor?" Marlene laughed, clearly entertained. "Oh, we've got plenty of flavors, and a few special ones you'll get to taste at the end of the tour. Patience sugar." Arthur couldn't help but notice that Jeff's enthusiasm was catching. The rest of the tour group was smiling, and even Marlene seemed to be enjoying the questions. As they moved toward the entrance to the factory floor, Arthur gave Jeff a warning look, silently reminding him to keep things low-key. But Jeff's excitement was already spilling over. The tour led them through a wide set of doors and onto an elevated platform that overlooked the sprawling factory floor. From this vantage point, they could see a network of massive stainless steel vats, conveyor belts carrying tubs, and workers bustling around like ice cream artisans. The air was filled with the faint, delicious scent of vanilla and cream. Jeff was practically pressed against the railing, his eyes wide as he took in the scene below. "Arthur, look. It's like a sea of sweetness down there." Arthur chuckled. "This is just the beginning. You're looking at where the magic happens." Marlene gestured toward the giant vats below, her voice carrying over the soft hum of machinery. "Right here's where we start with the basics. We take the freshest cream, milk, and sugar straight from local farms. We mix it all together to create the base for our ice cream." Jeff leaned even further over the railing, his expression awestruck. You mean, it's fresh every single day? That's right, Marlene said, nodding. Every batch is made fresh daily. Consistency is key in making sure Blue Bell tastes the same with every scoop. Jeff, almost breathless with excitement, turned to Arthur. They're crafting pure happiness down there. Arthur stifled a laugh. Careful, Jeff. You're leaning pretty far over. Save the acrobatics for the end. Marlene moved the group along the platform, explaining each stage of production. Conveyor belts wound around the floor in an intricate web, moving tubs to various stations. Workers in hairnets and gloves oversaw the process, with meticulous attention to detail, adding mix-ins, measuring ingredients, and packaging the ice cream with practiced efficiency. Jeff watched each station with rapt attention, his eyes darting from the mixing vats to the conveyor belts, then to the tubs moving in precise rows. It was like watching a dance, and Jeff was thoroughly captivated. As they reached a spot overlooking the mixing stations, Jeff fired off another round of questions. How many gallons of ice cream do you make a day? Is there a special freezer for each flavor? Can I push a button? Just once? Marlene laughed, clearly charmed by Jeff's curiosity. We make a whole lot of ice cream every day, enough to keep fans happy, that's for sure. And as for pushing buttons, we'll have to stick to just looking for now. Safety first. Jeff looked genuinely disappointed but nodded, accepting her answer with a solemn nod. Understood. It is, after all, a delicate art. Arthur rolled his eyes, grinning. You and safety, Jeff. Who would have thought? Jeff barely registered the comment, too engrossed in the sights below. Arthur, look at the people down there. They're like guardians of the frozen realm, true artisans. As they moved further along the platform, Marlene continued sharing fun facts about the factory and the flavors they made, pointing out different machines and equipment. Jeff's questions kept coming, and Marlene did her best to answer each one with humor and patience. By the time they reached the last section of the factory floor, Jeff was practically buzzing with excitement, his enthusiasm contagious enough to draw laughs and smiles from the other guests. Arthur stood back, watching as Jeff peppered Marlene with his final questions, clearly soaking up every detail. With a glance at Arthur, Marlene announced, "All right, folks, let's move on. We're just about to see where the real fun begins." Jeff's eyes widened with anticipation as he and Arthur followed the group toward the next stage of the tour, the wonder of the factory floor still alive in his eyes. He leaned toward Arthur, whispering, "This is the most magical day of my life." Arthur patted him on the back, grinning. "Just wait, Jeff. We haven't even gotten to the best part." The tour continued deeper into the factory, and Jeff was already practically bouncing on his heels with excitement as they approached the heart of Blue Bell's production line. They soon arrived at a series of massive mixing vats, each one churning gallons of thick, creamy base, which sent the sweet smell of vanilla wafting through the air. Jeff's jaw dropped as he stared down into the vast tubs, his eyes wide with awe. "Arthur, look at that. It's like an ocean of ice cream just waiting to happen." Arthur chuckled, knowing Jeff would be transfixed by the sight. "Careful, or you might end up wanting to dive in." Marlene, their guide, motioned to the vats and explained, "Right here, folks, is where we start mixing the ingredients for some of our classic flavors. These giant machines make sure every batch is as smooth and creamy as it can be." Jeff was practically leaning over the edge of the platform, watching the paddles churn the creamy mixture with fascination. "Marlene," he called, barely able to contain himself. "Do you ever let visitors jump in and, help stir?" Arthur immediately grabbed the back of Jeff's shirt, pulling him back from the railing. "Jeff, please, I don't think they want demon essence in their vanilla." Marlene laughed, clearly entertained by Jeff's enthusiasm. "I'm afraid that's against the rules, but I'll take that as a compliment. We're very protective of our recipes." Jeff sighed, still staring longingly at the mixing vats. "Arthur, imagine the flavors we could create. I could be a flavor pioneer." Arthur patted his shoulder, half amused, half exasperated. "Just enjoy the tour, Jeff. You can brainstorm flavors later." The flavor vault. Marlene led the group into a room filled with shelves of small tubs, each one labeled with a unique flavor. "This," she announced with a flourish, "is where we keep some of our more experimental flavors." Jeff's eyes lit up, and he glanced around the room with wonder. So, there are flavors in here the public has never tasted? Marlene nodded. Some of these are market exclusive, meaning you'll only find them at specific places, and a few are for in-house enjoyment only. They're not for sale in stores. Jeff practically buzzed with excitement, clearly imagining himself as some sort of elite taste tester. In-house flavors, huh? Arthur, I need to try them all, for research. Arthur smirked. I'm sure they'll let you try a sample at the end. Jeff turned back to Marlene, his gaze serious. Can we just take a moment to appreciate the artistry here? Each of these flavors is a masterpiece, kept hidden from the world. It's inspiring. Marlene chuckled, nodding in agreement. We like to keep a few secrets up our sleeves. Keeps people coming back to visit. Overlooking the packaging line. The group moved on to an area overlooking the packaging line, where tubs of ice cream were filled, sealed, and labeled at lightning speed. Jeff was glued to the railing, eyes darting from one end of the assembly line to the other as tubs moved down the conveyor belt in neat, organized rows. This is where the magic comes together, Marlene said, gesturing proudly at the line. Every tub of Blue Bell ice cream is carefully filled, sealed, and packaged right here, ready to be shipped out to stores across the country. Jeff's excitement reached a new high as he watched the tubs roll by. Could we, hypothetically speaking, name a flavor after me? I think the world is ready for a Jeff special. Arthur buried his face in his hands, trying not to laugh. Jeff? They're not naming an ice cream after you. Marlene, ever the good sport, grinned and winked at Jeff. Well, I'm sure a Hellfire Caramel Swirl would be unique. Jeff's face lit up, and he turned to Arthur with a serious look. Did you hear that, Arthur? Hellfire Caramel Swirl. It's practically a bestseller waiting to happen. Arthur shook his head, chuckling. You're lucky Marlene's humoring you. Interactions with the workers. As they continued along the walkway, Jeff couldn't resist calling down to the workers below, his voice echoing across the factory floor. Hey, he called out to a group near the flavor mixing station. Have you ever tried making Screaming Strawberry or Demon Chocolate Inferno? I think it could be revolutionary. One of the workers looked up, clearly entertained by the overly enthusiastic visitor. I don't know about Screaming Strawberry, but I'll keep it in mind. The workers chuckled and waved, while Arthur gave Jeff a stern look. Jeff? Maybe stick to enjoying the tour and not giving unsolicited flavor suggestions. Jeff gave an exaggerated shrug, still beaming as he waved back to the workers. I'm just trying to help them unlock their potential, Arthur. Imagine the flavors we could bring to life together. Arthur sighed, but he couldn't hide his smile as they continued along the tour, stopping by the freezer. Finally, Marlene led the group to a large, frosty glass window that overlooked an enormous freezer room. The cold mist on the glass made the inside look like a frozen wonderland, with stacks of ice cream tubs, organized in neat rows. And here, Marlene announced, gesturing to the freezer, is where we store all the ice cream before it's shipped out. We keep it at a nice, chilly -20 degrees to make sure it's ready for distribution. Jeff stared through the glass with a mixture of awe and trepidation. -20? That's practically Arctic. Arthur nudged him with a grin. You're always saying you're fearless. Why not give it a try? Marlene, catching on, opened the freezer door. If you'd like, you can step inside for a few seconds. Just a quick chill. Jeff didn't hesitate. He darted inside the freezer, bracing himself against the blast of cold air. Within seconds, he stumbled back out, shivering and red-faced. Arthur, it's like the coldest hell imaginable in there. Arthur laughed, patting him on the back. Guess you're more suited to the heat, huh? Jeff nodded, dramatically shivering. Absolutely. That's a realm I do not wish to revisit. The rest of the tour group laughed along, entertained by Jeff's antics as Marlene guided them away from the freezer. As they made their way back down the walkway, Jeff turned to Arthur, a gleam in his eyes. Arthur, this has been inspiring. The machinery, the flavors, the people. I think I found my calling. Arthur chuckled, shaking his head. Let's just finish the tour, Jeff. We've still got one last stop, and I have a feeling it's the part you've been waiting for. Jeff grinned, practically bouncing with excitement. Arthur, lead me to the promised land of free scoops. The promise of ice cream was just around the corner, and Jeff could hardly contain himself as they headed toward the final stop of the tour. As Marlene led the group down a set of stairs toward the gift shop, Jeff's excitement was palpable. His eyes gleamed with anticipation, and Arthur could tell he was holding back from sprinting ahead of everyone. At the bottom of the stairs, a quaint, cozy shop awaited, filled with rows of Blue Bell merchandise, t-shirts, mugs, mini ice cream scoops, and plush toys in the shape of the iconic Blue Bell cow. Jeff darted toward the shelves, immediately picking up anything that caught his eye. "Arthur, look at this," he said, holding up a cow-shaped mug with an exaggerated grin. "And these," he pointed at mini Blue Bell branded spoons. "We could use them for taste testing all day." Arthur chuckled, gently guiding Jeff toward a row of pint-sized stuffed cows. "Careful, or you're going to clear out the gift shop before we even get to the ice cream." Jeff paused, clutching a cow plush toy to his chest. "Arthur, I need a memento of this day. This little cow can be our mascot for future culinary adventures." Arthur sighed, amused. "Fine, one mascot, but don't turn it into a whole collection." The free scoop experience. At last, the moment Jeff had been waiting for arrived. Marlene led the group toward a counter at the back of the gift shop, where a cheerful staff member stood behind a display case filled with tubs of Blue Bell ice cream. The colorful scoops were lined up like little works of art. Vanilla bean, Rocky Road, strawberry, mint chocolate chip, and a few in-house exclusives only available at the creamery. Marlene smiled, gesturing to the display. "And now, folks, for the best part of the tour, your free scoop. Take your pick from any of these flavors, including a few that you can't get in stores." Jeff's eyes widened as he scanned the options, marveling at the exclusives like salted honey vanilla and pumpkin pecan spice. He pressed his hands to the glass, peering in as if he were seeing something divine. "Arthur," he whispered with reverence, "this is the culmination of everything. I can feel it." Arthur chuckled. "Well, go ahead. Pick your scoop before they close down the place." Jeff, clearly torn, took his time contemplating his choices. After a few agonizing minutes, he finally selected the salted honey vanilla and requested an additional scoop of pumpkin pecan spice, which the staff member happily handed over in a double scoop cone. Taking his first lick, Jeff's eyes lit up. "Arthur, this is it. This is the pinnacle of frozen joy." Arthur grabbed his own scoop of Rocky Road and settled into a nearby chair as Jeff savored his ice cream, looking blissful with each bite. Around them, other tourgoers enjoyed their treats, but Jeff's delighted reactions stole the show. Farewells and future adventures. As they finished their ice cream, Marlene stopped by their table, clearly amused by Jeff's enthusiasm throughout the tour. "Y'all sure know how to appreciate ice cream. I don't think I've ever seen anyone so excited." Jeff grinned, holding up his cone triumphantly. "This is more than ice cream, Marlene. This is a masterpiece." Arthur gave Marlene an apologetic smile. "He's been waiting for this all day." She laughed, nodding. "Well, we're glad y'all enjoyed the tour. And if you're ever in town again, don't be strangers." Jeff looked around the gift shop, a spark of inspiration in his eyes. "Oh, we'll be back, Marlene. Next time, I might even bring a few new flavor ideas." Arthur rolled his eyes. "We'll see about that, Jeff." As they left the creamery, Jeff looked at Arthur with a mischievous smile, clutching his new cow plush. "Arthur, today was a monumental day in the world of flavor. I think I've found my life's true calling." Arthur raised an eyebrow. "And that's—" Jeff grinned. "To bring delicious chaos to every corner of the world, starting with ice cream." Arthur chuckled, shaking his head. "I guess there's no stopping you, huh?" "Not a chance," Jeff said with a smirk. "Now what do you say we plan our next adventure?" With the taste of Blue Bell still fresh on their tongues and a new plush mascot in hand, the two friends headed back to the car, already envisioning their next escapade. And Arthur, though he'd never admit it, was already looking forward to whatever adventure Jeff would drag him into next.